Hello there, it's Jan back from JB Crafts, and I'm back with maybe a touch of mixed media today. I wanted to have a play, and I've created a nice large tag, which I'm going to show you how to recreate today. So it is quite a long one today. So yeah, grab your cups of coffee. It might be a little bit longer than the usual ones because there's a lot of different elements. I've made my own background. I'm going to show you how I've done that. And then I've got lots of scraps of paper that I've used to embellish with, along with some really nice stamps, just to add a bit of detail there. So yeah, there's a bit of dimension. We've got this lovely paper scroll at this side, and if I just pop it sideways, you can see, that the little butterfly wings lift up, shape this one slightly, the moth in the middle. And yeah, we've got some metal elements on there, we've got some washi tape on there, I've got a bit of stamping on there, a bit of die cutting. We've literally been in the box and done a bit of everything today, and this is really what my kind of crafting. I love this style. So yeah, we're going to make a start with the background because I need that to dry, and then I'll show you how I've got some of the embellishments prepared, and I'll show you how I've done those. Lots of inks involved today. The background is using Distress ink, and I've used 3 colours. I started out, we're going to start off with the Broken China, which is a nice sort of blue-green. And then I added a little bit of the more turquoisey one, the Mermaid Lagoon. And then I've blended some of the antique linen in. And obviously, this is a cream shade. So we know that yellow and blue make green. So the cream over this lovely green blue, you get a sort of a touch, a tinge of green in there as well. And then I've gone back to my usual distress colours, which I'll talk to you about when we come to do the embellishing. So the tag measures 8 inches by 4. I've gone for a really large one today. You can make this on a smaller scale, but I wanted to incorporate this die, and this is actually one of Tim Holtz's mixed media dies, and it's just a cut-in die. You don't get an outline, so you can see if I lay that over the top where it's just cut into the tag. So we're going to use that when we've done the background, and we'll pop that through the die cutting machine. And that's the only die cutting that I've done really. The rest of it is all mainly torn to get that distressed look. Little bit of stamping. I've stamped on pattern paper so that I didn't have to colour in the butterflies, and I've just chose some scraps that echoed the turquoisey colours. And like I say, a little bit of stamping, little sentiment strip, bits from my stash. It's have a delve in there. I'm always advocating using the stash, and I've got plenty to go at, and I know you guys have too. So yeah, if you wanted to make this in a slightly smaller size, if you weren't bothered about this sort of detail, or if you've got a smaller element that you could die cut in here, it could go on the front of a card, it could go in a journal, it could be to sort of do some writing on for a scrapbook page. I've backed mine when I finish with some brown cardstock, so it's really, really nice and sturdy. The actual tag is watercolour card, and then I wanted something to show through here. I wanted that dark colour just to offset the stamping that I've done with my brown ink. So yeah, I've used quite a dark brown card, and it's a really thick one, so you can hear good sort of weight. So what we're going to do then, we're going to start out with the background. We'll pop that one just up there for a second. I've got that many bits and pieces around me at the minute. We want the ink, so we'll leave those across the top. I'm going to start with that one, then that one, and then that one. I'm going to bring in my mat just to try and sort of save the desk a little bit. I think it's just about clean. I've got bits still on it from yesterday, so we'll just make sure I give it a good wipe. I think we're okay there. And like I said, I've got my watercolour card. So this is just a standard watercolour card, and I've cut it 8 inches tall. So I've just chopped a tiny little 1/4 of an inch off the length and 4 inches wide. And then I use my little gadget that I have here. And this is just a couple of pieces of card stuck together, and I've cut off certain angles here. This one's 5/8 of an inch down from the top and 1/2 an inch in, and I've just used that to snip off my corners to get the equal corners. So we're good to go. So the first thing I'm going to do then, I'm going to bring in my distress sprayer as well, which has only got water in. That's just tap water. And I'm also going to start with the inking. So we're going to start with the Broken China, And I'm going to add some of this to the mat here, and we're going to sort of mop some of that up. I've got my heat tool plugged in at the ready. And having said that, the one thing I haven't plugged in, bear with me a second, is I need my hot glue gun. So we'll just plug that in under the table. Oh, excuse the disappearing act there for a second, and I'll just leave that to warm up. Somewhere safe, she says. I'm running out of space. Somewhere safe. Let's see if we can just tuck it in there for a minute so that it can warm up for later. There we go. Sorted. Don't knock it off, Jan. Right, so we've got our ink on here. I'm going to spritz it with the water. A few spritzes, and you can see how it all beads up nicely on there. And then we're just going to pick some up on the tag, and I'm going to try and grab my heat tool without disturbing the glue gun that I've just put on. There we go. We'll get that at the ready as well. So I've got the front of the tag, which is, this is quite a smooth watercolour actually. It has got a little tiny bit of indentation, but not a lot on there. So yeah, I'm just going to literally dab it into the ink, and look at that goodness. I love how we get the, you know, the coverage, the sort of where it meets the mat, you get this gorgeous sort of like, there's almost like suction when you pick it up, so you get this lining in it, and then you get that lovely spray from some of the smaller spots. So I'm going to do that again, a little bit lower down, and then I'm going to turn it. I'm going to do it on the bottom corner there as well, and then I'm going to dry this layer. All right, so once you've got what you're looking for, or once you're happy, you need to sort of dry the layers and build them up. That's the best way that I can explain with the Distress inks. So I'm just going to grab a wipe just to mop. See where it's the card will start to bow the minute you add water, and you do get a little bit of pooling with the ink. So I'm just going to dry and dab some of that off, and then I'm going to add the heat tool. And I just want to dry, it doesn't have to be bone dry. I just want to take any of the water and get that moisture soaked up with the heat, so that we can then go in again and apply a second layer. I've still got a lot of ink left on the mat. Don't want to waste it. And if there's any bits that are really stubborn, you know, if you're sort of like impatient like me, then just use that little bit of either wet wipe or tissue just to dab those pieces off. Yep. And then we're good to go again. So yeah, you will see it starts warping, but you can manipulate it back into place. So I'm going to go similar kind of spaces. I want to go over what I've already done. So let's bring that mat back across, and you can see I've got all this lovely goodness. So if we now tap on here, we're going to get this effect over the top. Yeah, and then I want to go sort of to the bottom, and I'm going to go in again. And you can see how we're getting this gorgeous sort of splatter over the top there. And each time I'm going to dry that layer so that it dries over the top. So just enough, as I say, to get the moisture out of it. It doesn't have to be bone dry. If not, the reason that I'm drying it is next time I go, I'm going to go a third time into the ink. And if it's still wet, you'll just end up with a big puddle of ink. You don't get this gorgeous marking on here. And you can see the Distress inks behave in a manner that, if you can just see here where it sort of pushes the ink and you get this lovely dark line around the edge. Look at this one here. It just, I love doing this. I could just sit and do this all afternoon. So again, a few little bits left. We are literally just going to mop the rest of the ink up now. I'm not really bothered now where and what it looks like. I just don't want to waste what's left on there. So anything that I can still see with the naked eye on there, we're going to mop up. And then I'm going to give that a wipe over just very, very quickly with that little wipe. And then we're going to use blue again, so I'm not too worried about the mats. We've got this one good to go. And then I'm going to bring in some of the Mermaid Lagoon. We're going to do exactly the same, but this is a slightly more sort of turquoise. It's a bit stronger colour. So yeah, I'm going to pop that down. Let's move those over because we've used those two now. I'm going to add the water again. It's the same process. So quite a liberal amount of water. And then I'm going to go for some of the spaces. I don't want to kill all this white space, because that's where I'm going to add the antique linen, and we're going to start blending. So yeah, I want a bit down in this bottom corner here. You see how that's a much richer, and again, you know, I've got all those little tiny speckles, and you might think, oh, there's a lot of faffing, but this is how you get those gorgeous layered backgrounds. So that one doesn't move, and we keep all that lovely sort of splattering of ink. Just going to dry that one off a little bit so that I don't go, if I go back in again, I'm just going to get a big puddle of ink. I want some on this side here, so I'm going to go about there. Yeah, oh my goodness, look, can you see what I mean about that? Moving it off the mat and you get those sort of like little suction marks in it. And we're going to do several things to this, so don't worry. You know, it's not an exact science, this. It literally is. You get what you get. And if it starts looking messy, don't worry about it, because we're going to do lots more things to it and it will change every time. So again, I'm just going to get those two little stubborn bits out of there because I want some of this turquoise on this corner now as well. So I'm just going to pop a bit more water there. I want to pick up some at that side, that corner. Okay. A little bit more in. There we go. I like that. I like how it's caught that top edge this time. So again, once you like what you see, get it dried. And then it will set in that pattern. You can see you keep all that lovely goodness. Again, that one's a little bit wetter, so I'm just going to kind of, can you see how it takes the middle out and just leaves that gorgeous surface? Now I don't want quite as big a white space here, so I am going to aim for a little bit of that blue in that gap there. So I'm holding up the bottom of the tag and just popping the middle in, and you can always push the ink around by adding a little bit of water there and then taking out the excess. So yeah, I'm happy with that. I just want some smaller spaces to pop that yellow, that antique linen in. So a bit of a dry again, and then because I've wet that and spread it out, I'm going to try and pick up some of those dots over the top of it as well. So one last dip in there. I've got some of those lovely dots over here, look. I'm going to try and get some of those. Yep, on the top. Fabulous. Love that. That's fine. I'm quite happy with that. Give it a dry. This is why I like the heat tool rather than the directional tool, because you've got that nice, soft, gentle heat on here. So again, I've got a really stubborn bit there, but I quite like that dark spot here. So I want to actually dry that off rather than dab it out. I want to dry that bit because that's going to look really nice against the where we're going to put the antique linen in. There we go. Fab. So yeah, that's lovely. That's going to look lovely over the lemony yellow colour. So you could stop there if you wish, if you want to stay with the blue and white. Now we've got all the ink left. So if you do have spare card lying around, you can always mop up some of that ink on another piece, and you can use this for creating sort of embellishments. You can use it to, you know, sort of make your tickets and your ephemera out of, and you've got a piece that actually matches the work that you're doing. So that'll go into my sort of scrap box. I don't need it for this project, but it'll go into the scrap box, and as I say, you've got a piece that you know exactly what colour it is. So again, we're just going to take off that excess ink. Make sure we're all nice and clean. The task today is not to look like a Smurf. The other day when I'd been playing, I looked at my fingers and I'm like, wow, I just look like a Smurf. I'd got blue and turquoise ink everywhere, but we're not doing too bad so far. So we're going to go on to the antique linen, and I'm going to apply this in a different manner now. I want to use my applicator for this. So rather than actually dipping it up and wetting that blue again, I'm going to use my sponge applicator for this one. So just going to pick up the ink off the ink pad, and then where we've got some of those white elements left, I am going to bring that antique linen in, and I am deliberately slightly overlapping some of the turquoise, and that's where you're going to get that kind of green tinge to it. So wherever I've got the white showing through in the background, I'm just going to bring in that antique linen. And that's why I've chose the applicator, so that I can be a little bit more precise with that application there. And again, you can bring this in as dark or as light as you wish. You might want to go for a different combination of colours. That's absolutely fine. So just having a look where those white elements are, and literally smooshing all that lovely ink over into the gaps. And like I say, you're getting a slight green tinge where it's overlapping that turquoise, that blue. So I've got a little bit down that edge there. And then I want to bring a bit in at the bottom here. We've got a bit there, and I'm just going to rub it into that lighter area just to change that tone a little bit. And then have a look, see if you're happy with it. And it's knowing when to step away from it. And because we've dried the blue, it's not picking up any of the blue ink. These just layer up beautifully, the distress inks, which is why I actually love that distress range so much. You know that they're my favourite inks for this kind of job. And we're going to bring the oxide ink in as well. These are actually the inks that I'm using at the minute, but I am going to bring in one of the oxide inks. So that's my antique linen. I'm happy with that. We'll pop that one out of the way for a second. And then I've also got antique linen in the oxide. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with the inks, these are a dye-based translucent ink. This is a mixture of a dye-based and a pigment ink, and you get that lovely oxidization. And what this is going to do, let me show you why I'm going to put this on. It's not a massive effect, but I'm hoping the camera will pick up what I'm actually going to do. So the same technique on the mat, a bit of water, not a lot in there. And I'm going to bring in a paintbrush this time, and I've got a decent size. Normally when I'm splattering, I use a fine little small paintbrush, but I actually want some big sort of areas. So I'm going to soak up some of that ink, and then I'm literally just going to tap this over the top, all over. Oh, all over me as well, she says. It's a good job it's water-based ink, isn't it? Put a little bit more water down there because I just need to be able to pick it all up and apply. And I'll show you what happens when we dry this. And it's a very subtle sort of layer, but that's what the mixed media backgrounds are all about. I think maybe I should have put my apron on here because I'm covered in splats of ink now, but we're okay. And then what I want you to do is dry that again now. Okay, so I'm just going to lift this up and just dry that ink, and then I'll see if I can show you why I've used the oxide, see if it's going to show up on the camera. So this has got water in it because I spritzed it, and we all know that the distress ink will lift when we add water to it. Okay, so yes, you can just splat water on here and you're going to get that lovely lift. We're going to do that as well, and I'll show you the difference. To say, we're going to hit it with pretty much everything we've got, and I've got another couple of stages to go yet. So just make sure we've dried it. I haven't blotted this one, I've just dried this straight from the splatter. The water we're actually going to dry off with the paper towel and lift it off the design, but using this has done exactly what I wanted it to do. Let me just clean off that surface now so that we don't get covered in what's left on there. And again, you know, if you wanted to add any of this to your scraps, then go for it. But what we've got now, if I bring this up to the camera, can you see where it's done the distress as usual, but it's pushed the colour, so the antique linen, into the edges of all these little areas. So you've got that dark edge round them, even over some of the blue areas. You've created like that little puddle, but the ink has pushed out to the edges of all that area. So you get a different effect than what you do. I'm just going to put some plain water down now. And I hope that my brush... Now we need to clean that off, Jan. That's not good enough. I do need that to be clear water this time. So let me just give that a good clean. I don't want the oxide ink in it this time. I just want water. And we're going to do the same technique again. There we go, look. But this time, just with the water, and I'll show you the difference. We're going to lift this one with the tissue. All right, so we've got plenty of water down there. It's not easy to see at the minute. Give that a second while I just mop up the mess. And then this time I'm actually going to take my kitchen paper and just pop it over the top there. You can see where I've done it last time. And then we get that lift of ink. So it's a different technique altogether. So we've still got some of those areas that have got that lovely colour around the edge from the oxide ink here. But we've also got these areas from the water where we've just lifted the ink out. And can you see how we're getting that gorgeous background again now? So I'm just going to blast it again. It's not wet as such, but for the next layer, I do want that water to be gone. So just a quick blast again with the heat tool. We've got one more layer of splats to do, and again, you know, you take this as far as you want it to go. It's entirely up to you. And what I've got now is some of the distress mica stains. Now these have got mica in them. You can see I've not shook mine up yet. It's all settled in the bottom, so you've got colour in here, and you've got that gorgeous mica which is like pearlescent. So you're going to get a little bit of shimmer, and it's very subtle. You see the mixing bowl in the bottom. It's really important that you mix all that sediment off the bottom of here. Because these have got the little tube in for the spray, it will bring it up through the tube and clog the nozzle. Now I'm not actually going to spray this. I don't want that much colour. But I do need to agitate it so I get all that gorgeous mica. And what I want to do is just pop some out on here. And we're going to splat again. So then we're going to get some nice little sort of shiny, once they're dry, they're nice little shiny specks on here. So I'm just going to get some out, pop it on the mat there. That should be plenty, I think. Put that back to one side, and then we're going to do the same again. So I've got my paintbrush again. I'm not adding water to it. I don't want to dilute it. And I'm going to soak it up with the paintbrush and splatter again. So just go for it. Give it a good tap everywhere. And then I need to clean that out of the brush again. And I haven't got a thingy of water in here. I normally have a glass of water so I can just pop this in the water, but we'll just give it a wipe, and I can do that later. Get rid of that off there. And then we're going to dry it one more time. Now it actually looks quite dark. I didn't tell you the colour, did I? I've used Unravelled, which is a beautiful pale gold colour. It's really, really nice. So yeah, at the moment they actually look quite dark on here, but while that's wet, it's not really showing the shine. So again, I'm just going to hit it with the heat tool. Because they're only little splatters, it dries quite quickly. And when they're dry, hopefully we'll be able to see that little bit of shimmery goodness. Excuse me. So again, I want them to go much, much lighter. You can tell when they're dry because they get that lovely shimmery finish to them. So just add the heat to it until you can see that darkness of the liquid change. Just a couple of stubborn spots in the middle there. And then I'll hold it up to the camera and you'll be like, I can see these now as they're drying off. So we'll pop that one to one side. Just give it a quick manipulation back into place before it dries too much. See, we're back to being reasonably flat again, and I'm going to back this so I'm not too worried, but just see, can you see that gold splatter just catching the light there? It just adds. So we've got all the ink in the background, then we did the oxide part of it that's got this lovely sort of pushing the ink out, then we did the lift, which has actually given us these gorgeous sort of blank spots, and then we've got that nice shimmery tone. I'm hoping the camera's picking that up okay for you guys. Okay, now it may be you know, I sometimes sit and do this if I'm having an afternoon where I think, I'm not quite sure what I want to make today. I just want to have a play. Get the inks out, get your colour wheel out if you're not sure of the colour families that go together, and just have a play making backgrounds. They don't even have to be tags. They can just be offcut scraps of card that you've got left in your, you know, your cut-off box, and just make some backgrounds. These can be used for all sorts of things. You know, you could make a card front out of this. You could die cut sort of greetings or flowers or things like that out of it. You could make, if you're into the journals, you could make your index cards out of them. You could make tags, smaller tags out of them. The possibilities are endless to just go, even if you wanted to, with a full sheet of A4 and just go for it and have a play. And what you get is what you get. Don't be too precious about what you want the end result to look like. This is it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in now a couple of my favourite brown inks. I think we can get rid of that now. We've done with that. Favourite brown inks for distressing and making more of a vintage look. And that's my Vintage Photo Ground Espresso. And these are both oxides, all right? They're just a little bit softer. I always used to use the ink for edging, and I do still sometimes. But when I want that nice soft edge, I do like these two in the oxides. So we're going to do the Vintage Photo first, and I'm going to go all the way now round the edge, and you'll be amazed what a difference. I want to come quite a way over the edge, so I've actually got my applicator quite flat. So normally I would say come at an angle, but this one I want to bring it in. Can you see how we're bringing it into the edge of the card there? All the way round. So I'm deliberately letting that ink smudge into the edge of that card. I like to build up the corners. And the Vintage Photo's the lighter of the two browns. We're going to add the Ground Espresso just round the edge to darken the edge. So again, building up that corner. I'm going to leave a little bit at the top here. You know, and again, it's a personal thing. I know I harp on about this all the time with the inks. I love my inks. But yeah, if you're happy with this clean kind of look here, then leave this stage out. But I just love the effect, and it brings it all together because we're going to use some brown with our embellishments. It's just bringing everything together. So that's that layer. And then we are going to bring in that Ground Espresso, and this one's much, much darker. It really is sort of coffee colour, but this time I just want to touch the edges. So I've changed the angle of my applicator here now, and I literally just want to catch the edges of it. So that Vintage Photo is still showing round the actual ink on the card. Build it up a little bit again at the corner, and then just, I've actually sort of got it adjacent to the card this time rather than overlapping it. And this is just picking out that defined edge of the actual tag. So you can see we're creating sort of shadow. We've got that brown coming in, but we've got that darker outside. So if I pop that on here now, you can see that we've got that gorgeous finish background. Okay, so let's just have a quick clean on there. And you know, it's pretty much straight again now. It's not too bad, and as I say, I am going to back it onto a piece of brown when we've done the die cutting. So that's going to be my next stage now. I'm going to make sure that it is reasonably dry, which it is. I'm happy with that. And I'm going to bring in the die, and I want to die cut this into that bottom edge. So I'm just going to grab some tape to secure the die in place, and I'm going to bring it sort of a little bit up from the bottom and a bit in from the side there, and just tape it into place. And then just bear with me for a second, because most of you know now that follow me that my Gemini, my die cutting machine, is sat right behind me on the drawers that sit in my craft room behind me. So I'm going to pop this way. Just a little top tip for die cutting. These plates are the junior plates if you use the Gemini, and I use these nearly all the time unless something warrants having the big A4 plates, mainly because I'm impatient and these go through quicker, but you do have to put them through sideways. Now you could put this on here like this. Your mind tells you to put it that way because it fits on, but if your rollers in the machine are coming against something that is longer, It's got to work much harder than if I put it this way and it's hitting the top here, which is smaller. All right, so less cutting points. It's going to allow you to get a better defined cut. So I don't mind that that bit's hanging off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed it into my Gemini this way with the tag. I would never feed the paper or the cardstock into the slot. It's going to come this way and this will follow it along the rollers. So yeah, I'm just going to pop that through here. You can hear the machine there. And then that's the only die cutting that I'm going to do today. And sometimes I'll do this in advance, but because I wanted to show you how I'd created the tag, we needed this in place today. Okay, and then it's just a case of lift this out, and like I said, it's a cut in. There's no actual edge to it, so I need to lift off my tape and just gently roll it back, because I don't want to damage all that lovely inky goodness that we've done. Okay, if you tend to sort of rip it off like a band-aid, it's sometimes, especially watercolour card, and then just ease that die out, and it will lift out all those gorgeous little diamonds. There we go. Look, let's put the brown underneath it. You'll be able to see now. Look at that. You've also got a good set of these if you wanted to use these. If you were making sort of shaker elements or anything like that, you could actually save all the little diamonds out of here and use them as shaker pieces in something else, because they're all that gorgeous colourways that we've just done with the distressing. All right, and then this one is going to sit on top of here so that we've got a backing for it. So I think I'm actually going to pop that together straight away. I did it at the end last time. But I think there's nothing else needs to go round the back of the tag. So I think I'm actually going to stick this one down now. Okay, so I'm going to use a combination of a little bit of tape, mainly because I'm trying to use up some of my, I have got so many different types of double-sided tape. And I really am running out of space here in the craft room. There's a limit to how much more I can actually fit in here. So yeah, at the moment I'm working on trying to use up some of the stash. So to use what you've got. I still keep buying new things. Of course, I still keep buying new things. But I'm trying to be a bit more thoughtful about what I'm buying and as to what I've already got. So we just need to give that a good burnish down. Okay, move that one. I don't need that anymore. And I'm going to bring in my acrylic glue. Now, those of you that watch my, I think it was my last video, I talked about the fact that I'd changed my glue. I've currently still got a little bit of the old one in here. And I used to use the acrylic glue from Cosmic Shimmer. But it is quite expensive. So yeah, I wanted to try and sort of find something that was less expensive, and someone recommended this to me. This is Tonic's Nouveau Glue, and they've got an offer on at the minute on Amazon where you got 2 bottles for almost not much more pounds than the one bottle on its own. These are 120ml 4 fluid ounce bottles, and it dries clear. So yeah, I'm actually using this at the minute and quite liking it. So I've got 2 bottles of this to get through. Once this is empty, I will refill it with this one, but I don't want to mix the 2 glues. I don't want to tempt fate. So what we're going to do then is we're going to take off the liner of the double-sided tape, and I'm going to apply glue around the die cuts. Okay, so we'll get rid of those in the waste bin, and then I'm going to pop some of this. I love the bottles as well. This is gorgeous, isn't it? I've got some of these with the Nouveau drops in. Yeah, so just round the bottom here, I'm going to add some of the acrylic glue where the tape, there's no way was I going to try and get tape round all those diamonds, no way whatsoever. So every little bit of it's going to have a dot of glue in, because I want this to seal really well so that it shows that brown. And then I'm also going to go across the top, because again I didn't do the bits around there. And then all I'm going to do is smooth this out so that I don't get too much seeping out of the sides. And then I just use what was left, a bit of moisture left on that wipe I was using. And then we're literally going to pop these together. So I've got my layer of brown. I've cut this to 8 by 4, so it's the same size as the tag. And then basically marry up the two pieces. Not like that, Jan. Oh, I got the tape on it, hadn't I? Oh my goodness, I forgot I'd got the tape on. There we go. Right, shall we try that again? My goodness, that was horrendous. I'd forgotten I'd put the tape on it. I was thinking, oh, we're all right, we've got the glue, we can wiggle it into place. And look what happens. Yeah, I still make the mistakes. So I'm just going to reapply that to some of the areas, and we'll try and be a bit more precise with that this time, shall we, Jan? So yeah, just line up the bottom first, because that's got the wet glue on, so I can wiggle. And then we'll lay the rest of it down. That was a close call there, wasn't it? There we go. Whew. Save the day. And then I'm just bring out the little trusty roller and give that a really good press so that the tape and the wet glue has had chance to adhere with the back of the tag. Give it all a really good press down, and then all I need to do is take my scissors and just snip along the line of the tag that we made to take off the corners like so. So those are rubbish. That one is going to have its lid on so that it doesn't dry out. And then I'm just going to bring in my dark applicator again, because we've exposed the edges of those corners, just to check, make sure that everything is nicely sealed there, and we've got our tag good to go. So that is the basis of the tag. I'm covered in ink. I've tried not to, and I'm still covered in ink, so let me just have a little clean up there. Try and get rid of most of it, and then we'll just do the embellishing. So like I said, I've got quite a few of the embellishments ready, so I'll bring you this one back in so that you can see. So you can see that background, very, very similar but different. You'll never ever get the same thing twice, purely because it is random when you're actually doing the you know, the placement of the tag. So yeah, we've got that good to go. So I'm going to work on this top cluster first. So I've actually got, let me just move that one to one side for a minute. So these are all scraps of card out of my stash. Little bits that I'd been using for other things, and that got offcuts, and I've been through the pack. I keep a lot of my offcuts that I think are going to be that sort of useful for collaging and things like that. I have these little pockets that I buy off Amazon, and all you can see, all the strips and bits and pieces. So this, I think, was the same paper pad, and I've just pulled a piece out that was the size that I wanted, and literally torn all the edges there. So I've not torn this one because I'm going to do the scroll with this side, but I wanted this lovely, almost as if the paper was like, you know, when you burn it and it's all singed. Yeah. And again, I've done that with the two oxide. So I went round just like I did the tag, but a little bit more obvious here with the vintage photo, bringing it into the paper. And then again round the outside edge with that ground espresso. And I've just realised there is a stage that I didn't do on the tag. You might think, oh my goodness, have you not done enough to it, Jan? Yeah, let me just bring that back, because I've just seen it sat in front of me here. I left it out. I have actually got a stencil that's got the Harlequin diamonds on. So I'm going to take my original ink, which was the Broken China, and I'm going to take a blending brush for this one. Let's move that one out of the way a minute. Take some ink, and you don't see much of this. You can just see there's a bit of it popping out at the top here. So I've got a few of those little diamonds. I did cover a lot of it up, but because I'd done it on that one, we'll go through this one as well. Might bring it a little bit lower down that side, actually, like so. Do I want? No, they've got to be straight because that one's straight. Yeah. So again, it was very haphazard. I don't want sort of a regimental set of diamonds. And again, that bit isn't going to show. So I'm going to do the top bit and the bottom bit in the hope that there's maybe a little bit sticking out from underneath the embellishments that we're going to put on down that edge, and just really darken up where I know that they may be showing. And then I want to bring it, I'm going to line it up, I'm just going to bring it one more diamond because I know that's going to pop out underneath. Okay, so we'll pop that one to one side. I can clean that up later on the brush. Pop you over there for a minute, pop that one away, and oh, I've buried everything at the side of me now. Give that a clean, we don't need that one anymore. And I've just got a little bit off the edge of the stencil there, but not overly worried about that. She says, right, how are we going to do with that? I'm going to get a tiny little bit of water and my brush. Now I've put the water down, I can't see it, there we go. And I'm just going to lift, just smudge the line, lift a bit of it out so that it looks more intentional. That'll do. Being very pedantic there, but I do know that that bit's going to show. Okay, so yeah, we've got that sort of complement to the die cut there. So yeah, back to the embellishment. So this is going to be that base layer. So we've got this bit here with the scroll. So what I've done is I've measured in the piece that I want to stick on here, and I've just run a piece of double-sided red line tape on here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to curl this bit and roll it. So throwing things about. So this side that's got that straight edge, I'm going to flip it over and I'm just going to start breaking the fibres in that part of the card. It's actually a thick cardstock, this one. But can you see how it's starting to curl that cardstock? So again, it just helps with that sort of rolling to get that scroll. I really want it, and I'm not worried if it sort of creases it or cracks it, because you're not going to see much of it at all. So the more curved, and I've just gone up to where the red line tape is, the more curved that bit is, especially that edge bit here, the easier it will be to roll it. And then you want something round. I've got an old kebab stick here in this edge here, and then just start manipulating the cardstock. And what we're going to do is we're going to roll it literally around that kebab stick. Now then, my doorbell's just gone, but I think my hubby's in the other room, so he'll answer the door. I've got a delivery due. So yeah, once it's started, I'm going to get rid of the stick, because I find it easier then to just curl the paper. And all we're going to do is just roll, keeping it all tucked in as tight as you can, and just roll this all the way round. And then the reason I've put this here is to catch it at the end. So I'm going to take the liner off the red line tape and then keep rolling until you get to where the tape is, and then give it a really good press. Really good. You want that to stay in place. It will try and unravel because of the, you know, the paper itself is not used to being in that position. So yeah, give it a good press down, and then you've got your embellishment that's going to sit on here. And then I am going to bring in the ink again, because I didn't ink the underneath side of the paper. There was not really much need to, but now I know where it's finished, I'm going to bring in just the residue of what's on my ink applicators so that it tones in with the rest of it. Now I'm going to fold it further than what it needs, so that if it does start to roll back, it rolls back into the position that I want it. So that's piece number one. And then I went through my stash, and I've just found out an old ticket there out of some of my ephemera, and then I wanted it to look vintagey, so I've just been along, I've folded it, sanded it with my little sanding disc, which is just a circle die. I've just punched it with a circle punch on one of my applicators, and then again add a little bit of that ink to it, and it just looks as if it's, you know, it's been around a while. It's got a little bit tatty there, and I want to just darken up around the edges. And this one's actually a sticker, so I can release that. And do you know, they always misbehave, these, don't they, when you're on camera? I do this without. There we go. And then I'm going to place this one in the centre of that gap that's left. So what I'm actually going to do, just because this rolls in the way, is I'm just going to turn it upside down to get the positioning that I want. And I want it to sort of be pretty much in the centre of the space that I've got left, like so. And then we can give it a good press down. Okay, let me just grab that one. And can you see where we've just put that little line in it? It does look as if it's old and it's been around a while. So that's the beginnings of my design. Now the next thing I'm going to do, I've forgotten to do, is to pop the hole in the top so that I know how much space I've got up at the top here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go for the 4-inch width here and mark the centre about there. And then I've got my cropper dowel to hand, and I'm going to use the largest one of the holes on here and pop my hole in there. I might have to readjust it when I put the hole reinforcer on. Does anybody else have one of these that likes to eat the bit that you'd cut out? Every time mine does. Put you up there for a minute because I'm going to need you again for the eyelet. But yeah, I know how much space I've got now when I set this down. So about there. And then I wanted to run these pieces under the back. So again, these are pieces of scrap. So this one's actually from a paper pad that's got mat work on. And again, I've torn the 2 side edges, and then I've just scuffed up these edges with my scissors, literally like so, and added the ink to them just to keep that kind of distressed look. And this one's going to go all the way across the back here and peek out at one side like so. And then this was too samey. I'd got into that situation where one was very similar to the other. So again, I've got another scrap. This was the same piece as what we had here. So same scrap. And I've done the same. I've torn this edge. I've roughened up this with the scissors. Went round with the blue ink and the what was left on the brush here. So we'll just add a little bit more to it there. Just bringing in. I wanted some of that blue to lift the brown, yeah. And then I've done a tiny little bit of stamping on there with one of my stamps, and then this one's going to sit underneath here and lift. So we've got a difference now between the brown layers and just adding that little bit of blue in place there. So they're going to stick down like so. And then I've also got a couple of other bits that I've created myself. So this one was a stamped label, and I actually did my stamping on it and realised that actually, Jan, this needed to be the other way around. So I've had to turn it round, and I've got 2 lots of stamping, but we are going to pop this underneath. So I'm hoping that not that much of it shows, and it's not the end of the world, even if it does. So again, I want this to show the number. I'm not too worried about the fact that there's elements up there as well. And then this one, just a punch circle. And then I've done some stamping on here again. I've distressed the edge of it again. I'm going to bring in that darker one again, just on the edges, just to keep it all in consistency with what we've already done. And I want to slot this one. Now then, I did that under there, didn't I? So let me just see. I should be able to lift the sticker because it's only a sticker. Yeah, this one's going to slot in here and connect all the pieces together. So I'm going to stick the back one down first. We want the label and this piece, and I'm going to go back to what I've got left in my little fine tip applicator, which is still just a clear. This is what's left of the Cosmic Shimmer acrylic glue. Now I haven't used it yet today, so we'll just give it a little bit of encouragement because it always tends to dry up overnight. I don't know why. And then I'm going to put the label in first. So the back of here, these were cut from one of my Tim Holtz paper pads. There was a whole sheet that was just labels, and I was like, right, they're going to be cut out because I want to use those as embellishments. So I'm just lining those up so that I've got a roughly the same kind of area. And then this one wants to be underneath but low enough down that we can see the label when we put that one on. I think that's okay there. So right up to the edge, and this is just the other half of that label. And then I also want to put some glue on the back of this one, and I'm using the acrylic glue now because I've got ink underneath, and you've often heard me refer to it as embellishment glue because it will stick to lots of different surfaces, this. So that one is going to go in roughly the same place as what we had it before, maybe just a fraction higher because that piece is a bit longer, I think. And then I'm going to put this one in place like so. Yep, and then we can slot this one underneath. So again, this wants glue on. I've not added any dimension to anything yet. So this one I'm just going to hover whereabouts I want it, and then pop that one sort of pretty central so that I've got the same kind of gap above and below it, and then some of that lovely torn matte bit at the end. And then this one we're going to stick down. I'm going to leave the label stuck up for a minute because I want to slide that other piece underneath. So again, all on the back of here with the glue. You can use your hot glue for this if you want. I'm just going to use my hot glue for some of the embellishments. That's why I popped it on earlier. And then this one's going to come so that I've got some of the numbers showing. Move that one out of the way for a minute now. Some of the numbers showing, some of the stamping showing, and then I want it to overlap at either side. So yeah, we're going to go sort of around about there, I think. And then you've got some of this peeking out at this side as well. And then this one, and as I say, these are all scraps out of my scrap drawer. It was all handmade, apart from the little ticket bit here. It's all handmade embellishments that I've used. And again, that one's just going to slide underneath and join all three of those items together. And then I'll pop, because I've had this lifted up, I'm just going to pop a tiny bit of glue under that edge and stick that back down there. So that's got the bulk of that done at the top there. We've just got our butterflies, a little tiny added bit there, and then we've got the piece at the bottom. So I'm going to do this bit at the bottom first. And again, I've got 3 pieces that are just oddments again. So this was another scrap of that same paper that we've been using here. Torn, inked, it's got a tiny bit of washi tape and a little bit of stamping on again. This is actually washi tape. Let me just see if I can find it for you. Did I put it back in there? Oh, she says she'll find it, and then it's lying around somewhere. What have I done with it? There we go. Yeah, it's just washi tape that I've bought online, and it is literally just like a tape measure. It's absolutely amazing. Look how much is on the roll. You know how much I love that stuff. I've got loads of it. And all I've done is I've just added it to some scrap card, cut it, torn this little bit at the edge, and we're going to use this just to offset here at the bottom. So this one's going to come in from the edge like so. I've inked the edges of it again. Everything's been inked so that it all links together. And then we're going to pop. That one's going to line up with the edge, and I'm going to come across between this bottom 2 set of diamonds there. Look, we're going to come across there. In fact, I want to cover that bit, so about there. Just make sure it's running nice and straight so that we're not cockeyed. There we go, yep. And then this bit, I don't want all of this on here. I want the washi tape to overhang the edge. So I'm going to put glue on this portion. And I want the washi to just sort of overhang a little bit. So about there like that. We'll just let that dry for a second. And then I'm going to utilise this bit as well. And then I've got a little sentiment from some of my sentiment strips. On the original one, I used Don't Forget to Fly. I thought that was apt with the butterflies and sort of encouraging as well. This one, Use Your Wings, because we're going to put those same trio of embellishments on. So again, little tiny bit of glue on the back of there. And then this one, I just want to put on the edge of the tape measure, like so. Okay, and then once that's dried a little bit, we're going to snip this off level with the edge. We're going to re-ink so that that matches the rest of the tag. I'm going to re-ink that bit, and then I was like, oh, got a little bit spare now. So I was about to put it in the little tub and thought, actually, we can add, it just slides under there. It was perfect. So yeah, no waste not, want not. And this is where I get sort of, my husband calls it faffy. What are you faffing with? But yeah, it's just another little interesting piece that slides under the edge of there. And why not? And then this one, I decided it just needed something to lift it a little bit. We're going to pop that in there. But before we do that, I want to add the butterflies. So I've got a piece of cheesecloth. I'm just going to rag about a little bit. And then I've stamped out one of the larger ones, which is one of the moths, and then a couple of little butterflies from my stash. And then I've got some of these cute little paper clips. I've got a little stash of those. So what I did was pop this over the middle of this larger one here, and I want the bit with the heart showing, and that's going to become like the butterfly body. So what we're going to put a metal eyelet in here, and the metal on here, we're sort of introducing some different mediums. We've already used lots of mediums on the background. We're going to add in the cheesecloth as well, so we're bringing in sort of that sort of just a touch of mixed media, not a massive amount. And this is where I got the glue gun out. So I'm going to push up the wings on the moth at the side of the paper clip there to create some shape. I didn't want it to lay flat. And then these two, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to put my thumb at the side of the body and lift the wings, and then the same at that side, so that I create like a little tiny piece that we're going to put glue on. And the same with that one at one side, one at that side, and we'll just put glue in the middle so that again they've got some dimension. So that's why I put the hot glue gun on, because I find especially for the cheesecloth, it's the best sort of thing to use. So let's have a look how we want that on there. We're going to put it like that. So I'm just going to add a little bit of glue underneath here. That was a lot of glue, Jan, but hey, we're there. The moths are going to cover most of it up anyway. A little bit under that side. Yeah. And then we're going to start and do these. So I'm going to centre this one where I want it. And at first I only had this one, I must admit. I just used this one on the original design, and I'll show you what I mean. We had him sort of about here, like so. And then when I looked at it, I thought he's too small for the overall tag. It needed to be bigger. So out came the smaller stamp, and we created the two little tiny ones. And again, I'm just going to pop a tiny bit of glue down that middle bit here. I don't want a much at all, just a little bit down the middle. And we're going to put one underneath in line with the first one. And then I'm going to do this one. Again, just a tiny little bit down the middle. Probably too much. And then this one's going to go, so that we've got that sort of trio going on, because the sets of 3 always look really nice. And now that I know where everything's going to sit, I can then put this last little piece of embellishment on there. So again, just lifting it a little bit, bringing in this. This has been coloured with antique linen. I have a pot of these that are already made. These are done with my Tim Holtz stamps. I've got loads of them, and I just usually I colour them with all different distress inks. So I've got sort of, that one looks like either vintage photo, yeah, vintage photo. I've got some weathered wood. I've got some that are done with tea dye, and they're just there ready then to use. I don't have to worry about finding embellishments that are going to do the trick. And then what I want to do is just bring this one in again and just join. It helps secure that cheesecloth, and again just joins, makes it all sort of cohesive together like so. So that's that bit. And then the last thing I've got is my little tab that's going to go over here. And again, as I say, I might need to redo the hole, we'll see. And then I want to get an eyelet, and we're going to go, I think because we put the gold splatter on, I'm going to go with one of the gold eyelets again, which is what I picked. Whoops, come back. Like, don't use me, pick another one. Come back. Shot off across the desk then. So those live in the drawer behind me. I've got a drawer with all my metal embellishments in. So the first thing we need to do is pop this one in. So I'm going to apply glue, and these are just cut with a set of dies again that came with one of my many tag dies. I have an addiction to tag dies, if you haven't noticed that already, guys. And then we're going to pop this one on here. I can readjust the hole, although it's not too bad, and just pop that over the top. And again, I've just gone for one. Again, I have some of these cut in a little pot ready, just out of scraps. So when you've got scraps of card left, you know, like this, that you think are no good for anything, you can either die cut, you know, your little toppers out of them. You've seen me use my, this is one of the ones that I use. I've got my little flag punch. I sometimes use the little banners and just pop them in a tub, and you've got things ready then to go. I've actually got bits in here that I've cut off book pages that I've been using, and I'll stamp on these and cut these up for ephemera. So that's another afternoon's work. So what I'm going to do, because that was just offset a fraction, I am going to re-punch through the actual topper as well here. Because this is a machine, it goes through pretty much anything. There we go. Oh, it's decided to come out this time. Oh, I've put that away and I need it. Leave that there a minute. And then we'll just tidy that up a little bit. There we go. And I see the glue sat there looking at me saying, have you done with me? So we'll put the lid on there so that that doesn't dry out. And then I'm going to pop the eyelet through there. I've got it set ready for that one. In fact, I haven't got it set for that one because that one wants changing. There we go. Come on. Do you know, every time I try and swap that, do you know, this is why I never change it round for some reason. What have I done now? I've moved it and now it won't fit back in. There we go. So it's just on the bigger setting for the larger eyelet there. Pop that in there and give it a good squeeze together. And it just does the back of the eyelet for you. So now you can go away. And we've got that in there. I like that now. And then I want a length of twine. And just chop a piece off there. You can use ribbon on this, whatever you fancy. And I like to come from the back of the tag through to the front, and then just pop it through like so. And then you can decide how long. They're a little bit too long, so we'll go for a couple of snips there. And I think we've just got a bit of stamping to do and we're nearly finished. Yep. So let's have a look then. Let's have a look at the original one. We're nearly there. I've just got some odd bits, and I left the stamps out that I'd used so that I could just do that finishing off bit. And I'm going to use my brown Versavine Clair for this. So it's a nice dark brown. So the top of the tag, I've got a little one there that I put it the right way up, Jan. So let me just leave that one for reference. And again, we're just going to add bit of ink, and ooh, it wants to move down a fraction into that corner there. And again, this is optional. You know, you don't have to put the stamping on. You know that I love my stamping. I've got a nice long number from one of my Tim Holtz sets. I love the numbers. So that's going to come down this edge here. And I think it just fills in some of the gaps. And all I'm doing is just giving them a rub with my cloth. I've got, and some of them are from my acrylic stamp set, some of them are from my Tim Holtz stamp sets. I've got a mixture. This one's going to go down there. And again, I don't mind if they don't stamp out perfectly either, because it just all adds to that kind of distressed look. And then this one's a little tiny word. Just felt as if it needed something over here, and it's a little tiny word that says vintage that we're going to pop under there. And I think that's everything we need. I've got quite a gap here, but I don't want to overdo it with the stamping, so I think we'll leave it as it is like that. Pop you over there for a minute. Pop that over there. We've done with the ink. And I think we're just about there. We can fluff up now that glue's had a chance to cure. So you have got some dimension going on there. You can see, hope you can see that with the scroll and the butterflies and the moths. So yeah, we've got a couple there, just subtle differences. I've got a slightly different sentiment, slightly different shaped little snippet on there. But the rest of it I think is pretty much similar. And then of course I was like, it needs, even though it's all very grungy and very distressed, it still needs its gems. It wouldn't be a Jan project without the gems. So outcaped some that were a similar colour to the background, and I've gone for the 5 again. I've popped a couple here to start with, bringing your eye up to the butterflies here, and then through these up to the top here. So I've just got 5 on there just to finish off, and then I did have some little tiny brown ones. And I've put a couple in those smaller butterflies here. So this one's got the focal point with the metal paper clip in, and then I've just got a couple of little tiny brown ones in the middle there just to show you it finished off. And yeah, oh, I know what else I did as well. I've just remembered when I turned it over, I can see my staples on the back. Yeah, just again to add, because we were going down that mixed media route, I've just added with my little tiny stapler here, just in places, a tiny little staple. So I've got one, might put a couple in there actually because there's more space on that one, on there, and then I put one in here. So then again, it's like step away, Jan, step away, there's enough. But again, it's just adding that bit of texture. As I say, we're sort of touching into mixed media here with the different mediums we've used on the back. And then we've got the metal in here, we've got the cheesecloth in here. That just needs a little tiny bit, I think. Oh, something's moving. I'm just going to pop a little tiny bit of glue under that bottom edge there to secure. And it only wants to be a little tiny bit. And then I'm going to pop that bit back. That's it, just to secure that bit. So yeah, very, very similar. Just as I say, subtle differences. And if you wanted to use these to journal on, you could actually pop either some lined paper, some plain cardstock. You could put a matte layer on the back. You could use some coffee dyed paper on the back if you wanted to actually write on these, or you could just use like a metallic pen on the brown would work on the back of it, just to give it you know, some detail. So that's my tags. I hope you've enjoyed that one. I apologize if it was a bit longer than normal. I've not looked to see how long we've been going yet, but I wanted to show you how to make that background. And just bringing the stencil that little bit lower, you can see we've got some of those diamonds at the bottom here that are peeping out at the bottom too. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed it. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed the content. I know some of you like this kind of style. I know some of you prefer the card making, so I try and do a, you know, a variety of on the channel. But yeah, give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel and you've enjoyed it today, I would love you to subscribe. Keep our merry little band going, and I'll be back very soon. As I say, I've got a special, keep your eyes open for a special collaboration video again coming up, and I'll be back then. So enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.